Herculaneum was once an exclusive holiday resort, where Rome's rich and powerful relaxed in absolute comfort, their needs catered to by an army of slaves. But all that wealth and influence couldn't protect them from the disaster that was about to unfold. Herculaneum is much closer to Vesuvius than Pompeii is, so the people felt the force of the earthquake and eruption far more strongly. They must have watched in horror as a vast cloud of debris shot into the air. And then run for their lives. When excavators first began to uncover Herculaneum, they were surprised by how few human remains were found, compared to the many hundreds uncovered in Pompeii. They assumed that the population had escaped. But then in the 1980s, archaeologists turned their attention to a series of boat sheds that once lined the beach. Dr. Pier Paolo Petroni is an anthropologist who excavated 3 of these boat sheds.
That's horrific. So how many people were found in here?
In this chamber, during the excavation, we found 20 individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But all together, within the chambers and outside, are 300 skeletons of people.
So they'd run here to escape, or?
Very probably they knew what an earthquake was, and at the beginning of the eruption, very probably there were a lot of earthquakes. So they thought this place to be a good place to shelter. But actually this was very, very worst place for sheltering by the eruption.
The people thought the boat sheds would keep them safe, but instead they became their tombs.
And what first struck you about these bones?
I show you here a skull of an adult.
And it looks as if it's been cut so sharply.
Yes, and you see here there are some very clear-cut fractures with sharp edges, and blackening outside the skull, inside the skull. So all evidence that testify that these people were exposed to very high temperature, high enough to let the boiling brain and the skull to explode.
The brains had burst out of the,
Yes.
of the
So
skull.
due to the boiling of the brains, then the skull exploded.
These skeletons look very different from the body casts in Pompeii. It seems that whatever happened here was the result of a force so hot it reduced these poor people to a scorched pile of bones. And yet, just like Pompeii, lava was never found in Herculaneum. So why did the same eruption reduce people to skeletons in one place and yet preserve whole bodies just a few kilometers away? I want to take a closer look at the volcano at the heart of this catastrophe, Vesuvius.
This is the top of Vesuvius. It's very hard, looking around here, to think that this mountain caused all that damage.
But this sleeping giant wasn't always so peaceful.
When this volcano erupted nearly 2,000 years ago, It did so in a way that had never been recorded before. Instead of throwing out lava, it somehow created a wave of intense heat that was strong enough to kill people 11 kilometers away. So what did happen here? And why was this eruption so different?
Although much of the evidence has been lost in the mists of time, there was a witness to the disaster. A Roman, whom we call Pliny the Younger, was staying across the Bay of Naples from Vesuvius when it erupted. He wrote down what he saw, and 2,000 years later, his words still hold clues to the events of that day. 12 hours after the initial eruption, Vesuvius was still spewing millions of tons of ash and debris into the atmosphere. Pliny then described something very unusual. He wrote that a great mass of material broke away from the eruption column and flowed down the sides of the volcano. A fast-moving avalanche of gas and dust spread out across the land and covered everything in its path.
Pliny's words were disregarded for centuries, thought to be the product of an overactive imagination. Then in the 1980s, a volcano erupted in North America, and people saw for themselves that Pliny hadn't been exaggerating.
Mount St. Helens National Park has some of the most breathtaking scenery in the USA. But on Sunday, May the 18th, 1980, this peaceful world was transformed when the Mount St. Helens volcano erupted. For 9 hours, a vertical eruption column over 24 kilometers high spread 500 million tons of ash and debris across 3 states. When it fell to Earth, it covered everything within 600 kilometers in a fine ash. Volcanologists had seen eruptions before, but this was the first time they had managed to capture on film a spectacular phenomenon. If you look at the footage carefully, you can see that the whole north face of Mount St. Helens collapses. As it does, it releases a searing hot avalanche of gas and dust that explodes down the sides of the mountain. This is called a pyroclastic current. Temperatures inside this tidal wave of gas and debris measured 700 degrees Celsius. The turbulent wave of superheated gas travelled at nearly 130 kilometers an hour. It destroyed everything in its path within seconds. You can see the devastation caused by the pyroclastic current over 10 kilometers from the mouth of the volcano. Brittany Brand is a volcanologist who has made an in-depth study of the explosive eruption. She thinks that what happened in North America holds vital clues to what happened here in Italy nearly 2,000 years ago.
Can you explain what a pyroclastic current is?
A pyroclastic current is an avalanche of searing hot gas, ash, and rock that travels down the slopes of a volcano at hundreds of kilometers an hour. It's impossible to outrun and absolutely deadly.
When I think of an eruption, I think of streams of lava coming down a mountain.
Well, the style of eruption, whether it's a volcano will erupt lava or if it will erupt explosively, is primarily a function of how much gas is in the magma. If there is no gas in the magma, then the magma will erupt as a lava flow or a lava dome.
And that is the actual magma, the liquefied rock that's coming out as lava.
Exactly. And in an explosive eruption, the difference is the magma has gas bubbles. And as the gas in the magma makes its way to the surface, the gas bubbles get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where when the volcano erupts, the gases just expand very quickly and it rips the magma apart into very tiny pieces, which are your ash and your pumice.
See, so